LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga was the big release on all platforms last week, cramming this massive 9-film arc, brick by brick, into a single video game. And this was a rare instance where us Nintendo Switch peasants got a major third-party release day and day with other platforms. It happens so rarely. I think it's important that people remember that, again, this isn't just an instance where we got the big third-party game on Switch, but we got it the same day as everyone else. That's a big deal, honestly. So I've been playing the game. I've been playing it on Nintendo Switch as well as my Xbox Series X. Got two versions because I'm just such a Star Wars whale. So I wanted to talk specifically about the Switch version, how it stacks up, because I think people like getting a closer look specifically of these big games on Switch because, let's be honest, that's where we tend to see the most drastic differences with these big games. As you'd expect with the Switch version, the first thing you'll probably notice is a big reduction in resolution from the others. The picture is a lot fuzzier. Actually, on the title screen, with all the characters standing around, I feel like it's super noticeable how you can't even make out many of their faces. There's reduced detail overall, but that stuff, it really isn't so bad to have in a LEGO game, is it? You're definitely taking big hits with a lot of the finer details with the effects like lighting and reflections, but the LEGO character models themselves, right? They aren't super detailed or anything. Even some of the environmental stuff like fire, right? When a fire breaks out, you've got the little LEGO flame effects. Fire in a modern game would probably suffer a lot in a Switch version, or at least make the system struggle hard, might make it chug if you had a bunch of fire effects going, but it's not so bad or demanding in this case. I say this a lot. The more cartoony games fare a lot better on Switch than the more realistic ones for this reason. Turning a lot of the quality down doesn't hurt them as much, and I think the LEGO games, this game certainly fit into that category. But I gotta say, my Series X version, it's absolutely mind-blowing visually. I mean, this is by far the best looking LEGO game. It looks like you're playing one of the LEGO movies or something on Series X. I'm sure on the PS5 and PC. Is this game on PC? Probably. So that, I think, is also worth noting. You're definitely going to appreciate the higher resolution, higher frame rate and everything on a big TV. And this game is definitely pushing the Switch quite a bit. I did notice things were particularly rough visually in the more open areas, which I'll get into a bit later. And I did have some laggy moments when fighting a bunch of enemies or breaking a ton of environmental objects to get the studs held within. If you're unfamiliar with LEGO games, you collect these studs to buy all sorts of stuff, characters, ability upgrades, etc. And you can usually get a ton of them by just breaking objects in the environment, so it's common to just want to run around smashing everything you come into contact with. And when you're doing that, it can push the Switch a little bit too much in some instances. Also, there were some kind of glitchy things that I'm glad I had two versions, because I noticed in both, with the game locking up, temporarily freezing, I guess. I noticed this happening a lot of times, when the game wanted to give me prompts, the tips, hints, and that pop-ups. Sometimes it'd freeze up for a good amount of time. And that happened, I want to be clear, in the Series X version as well, while I was playing it. I got another issue with the game regularly auto-saving, where I died during an autosave and it just kept reloading me, dying over and over again, and I had to fully restart the level. That was in the Xbox version as well. I've seen a bunch of other people's encounters with glitches in that on Twitter, so there's probably a fair amount of bugs and glitches that need to be ironed out across all the versions, really. So you may notice some issues in the Switch version that aren't restricted to just the Switch. The main issue I had with the Switch version in terms of the visuals, particularly as I mentioned, occurred in the more open areas, which that is a big thing in this game, kind of regularly giving you these big open environments to explore, do little puzzles and side quests in before proceeding with the main story. You've got even more reduced detail in those areas, but the main problem for me is the ridiculous amount of pop-in. You've got large chunks of the environment constantly popping in and out as you moves through, again, mostly those big open areas. Now, I know this is a thing that happens in more open games in general. It even happens a little bit in the Series X version. But man, boys, on the Switch, it's a lot. Like, so much that, for me, it does get distracting. Again, you're talking big stuff, parts of buildings, lots of trees and that popping up almost right in front of your face. Some of the effects, again, it's just like the Switch is struggling to handle it all. Having the lighting especially, having that pop in and out is extremely distracting in my opinion, and it's one of those things I at least can get a little OCD about. Like, I start paying more attention to these things as I keep seeing them, like my attention starts focusing on that instead of the actual game. So that's something I would definitely make sure to consider before buying this game. If pop-in is something that can irritate you when it happens frequently, you may have a problem. Now, while I am being a bit hard on the Switch version, I'm not trying to say like it's trash. Definitely not that it's a bad port even. I think this is just another case of games continuing to kind of get away from the capacity of the Switch. Like I said, this is visually by far the best LEGO game in my opinion. I think it looks phenomenal. When I'm playing that Series X version, I'm consistently impressed by the different environments and everything, and it's just far less impressive on the Switch. It's hard to really appreciate a lot of those improvements on the Switch, but I'm not, saying like people shouldn't buy it. Again, I like to make sure you know what you're in store for. Obviously, if you're looking to play this game on the go, it makes sense to opt for the Switch version. It's still very much playable and enjoyable on Nintendo Switch, and I'd even say while playing in actual handheld mode, because again, you don't notice some of those things like resolution as much when it's on a smaller screen rather than blown up on a big screen. And yeah, some of those more close quarters instances, like when you're like in the levels that are on a ship, more linear, on my Switch OLED, I think some of the stuff looks better than solid, like really good. I once more just want people to be aware of some of those shortcomings. And the most important thing, as always, is gameplay. And while I'm still pretty early in this game, again, I've been ping-ponging back and forth between the Series X and Nintendo Switch, so I haven't been able to get too far on either version. At this point, I'm very much enjoying it. It's crazy, the level of content here. I mean, it's not like you're getting 9 entire LEGO games in one or something like that, so don't think it's too crazy. You definitely cruise through these movies much quicker than you normally would in a game that only covers one movie or like just a trilogy, something like that. But getting all these movies in one package, hitting those key story beats, having, again, these pretty huge open areas to explore. If you're looking for something to play in co-op, can't recommend this game enough. It is, though, another one of those situations, I'll say, like, again, many other third-party Switch releases, where I do wish we had a bit more juice in this thing. Not saying, again, I always got to point this out, not saying I need the Switch version to be on par with the others, especially with the next-gen consoles, the Series X and the PS5, but if we had a slight bump in resolution, at least while docked, kick up the frame rate just a bit, doesn't need to be 4K 60, but just a little bit better, and also if that pop-in was a bit more under control, I'd have no problem saying that the Switch version was the definitive version of this game, like the one I'd recommend the most. And certainly if you are looking specifically to play the game in handheld mode, you've got that edge. But I do think myself, I'm probably going to focus more on the Series X version because the game is just so visually impressive, and it's one I kind of want to see blown up on the big screen. Even though it's LEGO, with Star Wars, I like that cinematic sort of feel. Either way though, if you're a fan of LEGO games, Star Wars, while this isn't my full review from what I've played so far, you'll probably enjoy this game regardless of platform. And I also want to make sure that I make it abundantly clear that I am glad we not only once more got this game on Nintendo Switch, but got it day and day with the other versions, something we increasingly see less and less of as time goes on. And it is still, while it does push the Switch, I still think it's enjoyable to play on Nintendo Switch. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga in the comments. Are you currently playing the game on Nintendo Switch? What do you think of it? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.